Under normal circumstances, I start with a analysis of the video of our last performance, but to be completely transparent with you, man, I have not watched a snap of it. On a short week, man, my attention needs to turn to Cleveland. And so my assessing of the game really is just kind of from memory conversations and, reading the game book and seeing some things on highlights and so forth. As I mentioned after the game, man, I was really excited about the efforts of the guys. I think there's growth associated in being in games like that and persevering and doing what is required to win. It's growth for the collective. It's growth in not only belief in themselves, but each other and what it is that we're doing. And I think it just further positions you for appropriate performance with challenges that lie ahead. And so it was productive from that standpoint. Obviously, it wasn't a perfect effort, but I'm appreciative of it. As I mentioned post-game, man, what can you say about Chris Boswell in 2024 that hadn't been written or said? He's been everything that we need him to be. He is performing at an extremely high level. We're extremely comfortable in calling upon him in just about any circumstances. It's just been special. And to do what he's done, obviously, with a change at holder in the middle of the thing is doubly impressive. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't start first with his contributions and, Corliss not only as a punter but as a holder, just being solid in the specialist form of play. That collective in particular has been rock solid for us. Can't say enough about what Corliss has been doing for us in terms of flipping the field as well. The field position component is always going to be significant when you're in games like that, and it was. Not only in terms of what Corliss did or what Boz was able to do from great distances in terms of securing points for us, but the turnover game I thought was significant. We got turnovers and we provided the offense the short field a couple of times, and, that's big in a game like that. Obviously, we didn't perform well in the red area on offense. Anytime a guy kicks 6 field goals, you have some things to work on, but it's good to do that with a W. But it's also important that we acknowledge the talents and the expertise of the Ravens. We've been in a bunch of games like that with those guys. It's always back and forth. There's always going to be some components of the game that are troublesome to you from a performance standpoint, but that's just the nature of being in five-star matchups. And so we'll grow from it. We'll grow with the W as we lean in on this next outing. And obviously this next outing is a really significant one. When you have back-to-back division games, it is significant, but also to have back-to-back division games and the second one be on a short week on the road, man, that has our attention and urgency from a lot of perspectives. Obviously, we got to make really good decisions this week about strategy, what to run, what not to run, what can we perform on a limited amount of physical repetitions, what do we need to, take a calculated risk in terms of running on a limited amount of physical repetitions. I just think that that's always the case on Thursday. We don't default to, base menus and things of that nature, particularly when you're playing someone that is familiar with you as Cleveland is with us. It is worth the trouble to ponder what's appropriate to run and what's not. How innovative can we be? How expansive can our menus be? And press the envelope in that direction. And so we got some hardcore decisions there. You also got some hardcore decisions about how you work, what's the nature of your work. Are they walkthroughs? Are they run-throughs? On a limited amount of preparation time on a short week, what does that look like? And you manage the balancing act of getting them in the stadium physically prepared while at the same time preserving them, acknowledging that they were in a significant physical football game yesterday. And so we got that decision to make. And then how to best utilize the last 24 hours. We go to Cleveland on Wednesday. Oftentimes when you travel on the road, that last 24 hours is loosely organized, not necessarily so on a short week. How we organize that time, how we utilize that time, players and coaches, I think will be significant in terms of determining our readiness. And so those are some of the things that have had my attention as I quickly transition to this prep. On an injury note, hadn't checked in on Alex Highsmith in terms of seeing what his availability might look like. If you press me, I'd probably say he's more out than in, but we'll see where this short week leads us. Like the trajectory of some others, Pruitt. Benton went down in game, but that appears to be a non-issue from yesterday. All the guys that sustained something in game doesn't appear to be an issue moving forward, and so that's exciting. We opened the window for Corey Trice, as you guys know, last week, and he had a good week's work and may be available to us, and so we'll see where that leads us as well. And so we'll manage some of these player availability things and divisional labor things, particularly on a short week, how you distribute carries, how you distribute reps in terms of defenders in an effort to keep everyone fresh, I think is critical strategic decisions that have to happen on a short week. I'm not complaining about it by any stretch. Cleveland has to make the same decisions, and so from that standpoint, it's very fair. I'll turn my attention now to Cleveland and talk about some of the challenges of preparing for them. Starting first and foremost with their offense, man, I'm really just trying to get a sense of what does Ken Dorsey as the primary play caller mean? How is it different? What are the challenges for us relative to what we're used to regarding Cleveland? And so that's going to be a challenge. Obviously, we've seen Ken in the past from his time in Buffalo, but these last three games weigh a heck of a lot more than the ones that precede because of the significance of him as the central play caller. Coupled with that, obviously, is Winston in at quarterback, and so we got against him this week. Obviously, he has our attention. Jerome Ford, I thought, stood in for him in a real solid way a year ago and continues to do those things. Man, he's a home run hitter. He's a guy that's capable of breaking big runs. He broke a big run on us last year. His last year at Cincinnati, we did a lot of work on him in draft prep. I think he had more explosion runs than anybody in that draft pool. And so his big play capabilities have our attention. They got some turnover at the receiver position, but it's not lack of talent there. Judy is new to them, but he's not new to the NFL, man. He's coming off of a really big game. They acquired Moore from the Jets last year, and he's a top-notch slot receiver. There's been some strong development in Tillman on the outside, and I think his growth and development is probably the central reason why they were comfortable moving on from Cooper at the trade deadline. Watching his play and looking at his statistics, and particularly of late, you see that growth in production and in the cohesion that he's gaining in terms of his professional career. We got some work to do there. And then last week was the first time they activated Tony, and they had some packages for him. You couple all of those eligibles that I mentioned with Njoku at tight end, and obviously we're highly familiar with him. He is a challenge. He does a lot of things well. His vertical game is excellent. I've been really impressed with the development of his blocking over the years, man. He has become a significant point of attack blocker. I don't think he was that when he came into the league. As a matter of fact, I think I complimented him on it post-game last year. It's real. His point of attack blocking is excellent. The tight end screen game and him as an outlet to the quarterback is a dangerous one because his run-after abilities are unique for the position. You can throw a tight end screen. He can turn it into a big gain. They can throw him a check down or a spot over the ball. He can bounce off some tacklers in your secondary and turn it into a big game. And so we got a lot on that side of the ball to get ready for and to be urgent about, particularly because of the lack of familiarity in some instances, particularly at the quarterback and play caller position. Some of the receivers are new, and so we got some challenges there. They got more continuity on the defensive side of the ball, but it doesn't mean that it's easy work. Jim Swartz last year in his first year proved his capabilities, man. He's been at it a long time. They were tops in the league in a lot of things last year. Pass defense, yards per game, and things of that nature. They got really good continuity in staffing and in the secondary, and so We're working to manage those things. Denzel Ward is top-notch, but Newsome, that we've been in stadium with them quite often, and so we got some work to do and to get home as well. And so those things have our attention. The environmental component has our attention, man. Thursday night in a hostile division environment is something that we need to be ready for. We've been really fortunate in road game environments this year in terms of the support of our fans and their ability to acquire tickets, man. DC, Atlanta, Vegas, Denver, et cetera. I don't know that that's going to happen in Cleveland. I know as a collective we better be prepared for a hostile environment, the dog pound, et cetera. And so we got some new people, whether they're new to us and new to the National Football League, that need some quick education while we do the physical work that's necessary to position ourselves for performance. And so it's very early in this process, got a lot of work to do, but excited about doing it, excited about leaning in on divisional play. We understand the significance of divisional play, and I'm excited about getting this group into this week, man. You learn about yourself every week, but when the variables change, primetime football, road football, et cetera, the short week is a component of it as well. I'm excited about seeing the maturity level, the professionalism of this group as they embark on the preparation associated with a short week. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, given the stature of that game and the offense you were facing, the quarterback you were facing, is that as well as you've seen your defense play?
You know, I hadn't thought about it. I'm never surprised when they play well, particularly when they prepare the way that they prepared last week. And so I don't know that I viewed it through that lens. It's more satisfaction than anything else because I know our talent level. I know our professionalism and our preparedness. I thought they had a good week's work. I thought they were wired in. I thought Justin really challenged them. They had a good challenge in terms of prep, in terms of utilizing his skill set to represent that. And so it's probably more satisfaction than anything else.
Mike, you referenced an edge yesterday that you got from that good prep you were just talking about. How do you capture that in a short week scenario?
You don't necessarily do or attempt to. I think one of the things and key variables that you weigh is how do you best position the group to perform? And by that I mean, how do you get them in the stadium in the very best physical condition you can get them in on a short week? And so sometimes physical preparation gets compromised on a short week. But again, I'm not complaining about it. I imagine that Cleveland is tasked with the same challenges. I think we all are. Those critical decisions that need to be made about how you work on a short week is a major component of performance.
Understanding the point that you made, you haven't had time to do the deep dive on yesterday's game, but in the moment, as you were watching it, where do you think you could have been better on third downs and in the red zone?
You know, in a lot of areas, in all areas, but I'd be remiss if I didn't credit those guys. As we talked in here last week, I said don't be misled by some of the statistics regarding Baltimore's defense, that they are a top-notch defense, and sometimes, you know, being last in passing just reflects that you're in pole position in a lot of games and people lose their personality and get one-dimensional. And I still feel that. They're a salty group. Even though they got a new play caller, they got continuity in their approach to business. They got continuity in a lot of players. And sometimes, man, I just like to give credit to those that we compete against as opposed to crying and whining about our lack of performance in certain areas. Make no mistake, we got room for growth in a lot of areas, but they played well also.
You guys possessed the ball pretty well in the second half, 4 straight drives of 8 plays or more. What did you feel like you guys adjusted to possess the ball longer in those situations?
I don't know that there was any adjustments made. Sometimes it's just fluidity of performance, particularly in a game like that where emotions are a major component of it. You saw some chippiness on both sides early in the game. I think halftime was an opportunity for us to gather ourselves and control our emotions and direct it properly toward execution. At least that's what we talked about. I think the play is kind of reflective of that.
The passing game hasn't been as efficient the last 2 weeks as it was in Russ's first 2 starts. Is there a common denominator to that?
You know, I hadn't thought about it in terms of a broad brush. We were in a hostile environment in D.C., and sometimes that's challenging in one-dimensional passing moments. We played a really good defense.
Herbig, and he came through with a couple big plays. What did you see that was what you wanted to do with him?
We were getting off the field. We were possessing the ball some on offense. There wasn't as many defensive snaps to go around. Herbert's, conditioning or lack thereof wasn't compromised because of those things, and it made the divvying of the reps a less significant discussion, to be quite honest with you.
Can you talk about specifically him blowing up the 2-point conversion and how key he was in that play?
He's a big-time player, man. He's a young guy, but even in a small sample size, I think we all recognize his playmaking capabilities, and I think any of us that are around him are not surprised when he makes significant plays, particularly in significant moments, man. He trains under the likes of T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith, man. He's got some great role models, and he's got an awesome work ethic and mindset to boot, and so I'm not surprised by it at all.
Looking at players like Preston Smith and Mike Williams who are new to your team, is there anything you can possibly do in a short week like this to get them more involved, or is it just...
I think every day is an opportunity to do that. There's a cumulative component to their involvement that has nothing to do with this week. We're just building upon days that we've already laid out. And so I'm excited about continuing to get to know them more and how they might be able to help us and infusing them more into what it is that we do.
Mike, what is the impact of the play of your defensive line to what you guys are doing defensively, especially the depth with that group?
We got to play a lot of people, particularly when you're chasing somebody like Mr. Jackson,
Change their play, or are you trying to? You think they're going to run the same play? If somebody does it to you, do you run the same play?
I got no control over whether or not they changed their play or not. I really wanted to look at their structure to see what mindset they were in and have an opportunity to maybe talk about it and better ready our guys and maybe eliminate some other concepts that might be less relevant based on what it is that we're looking at. And so that was the mindset. Whether or not they repeated their play or changed their play is not up to me.
When you called that timeout, they had started to the play. And it looked like Lamar was maybe going to take a step forward and maybe try that jump pass or something.
It did kind of look like that, didn't it?
That play in, did you think about that for the next, during the timeout?
You're damn right I did.
Mike, Peyton Wilson made a significant play in a critical moment for you. What have you learned about the way that he works, having him for half a season now at this point, to set himself up for that kind of an opportunity?
It's not necessarily the work template that he sets for himself. It's much like talking about Herbig. He's got some real questions, and he listens and follows veteran guys that do it the right way.
To your previous point, Mike, about the continuity that Cleveland has on defense, a little bit more so than offense, and the environment that they're in, do those two hands wash each other when it comes to the challenges that you guys have had up there in recent seasons?
No question. The environmental component, primetime television, the wave that Myles Garrett and others provide up front. They've had a top quality rush group for a number of years. You couple that with a talented and veteran secondary group. They're good up front. They got a nice umbrella on the back end. I think they were first in the league last year in terms of explosion plays in the passing game. They gave up 39 passes of 29 yards or more in 2023. And so, when they're making you earn it and they're not giving up things by chunks and they got a dominant group up front, that's a tough nut to crack, particularly when you're in their environment. And so, yes, those things that I outlined and others have our attention from a prep standpoint.
Where do you see Mike Williams at right now as far as jump on the move and train? He caught the game when he touched down last week, but had around the same amount of snaps as Calvin Austin, less than Van Jefferson this week.
I like his work. How we feel about his progress is not always reflected in statistics. We'll keep working. He's doing a great job fitting in. We're doing a good job of getting to know him. I like the trajectory of it.
Do you foresee him maybe getting a higher share of snaps in the near future?
We'll see, man. It just really is week to week. And from a matchup perspective, or how we put our plan together, I'd be speculating, particularly at this stage of the week, this early. I'd be making it up, and I just don't want to mislead you.
Mike, you were emphatic about sticking with Broderick Jones. Where do you see the more need for improvement? Is it with the penalties or with the pass pro?
He's a young guy, man. He's younger than all the rookies at his position, to put perspective on it. Zach Frazier and McCormick are older than him. And so he's got growth in all areas ahead of him, but he's also has an awesome skill set. And so we're experiencing some bumps and bruises associated with on-the-job training. Like I mentioned yesterday, I have no intentions of blinking, and neither does he. And we'll just keep working.
Mike, you
mentioned the critical decisions that need to be made about how you guys work on a short week. How do you see some of the veteran players on your group kind of instill the knowledge of, hey, how do you prepare for a short week to some of the young guys?
You know, it's not a lot of help that they can provide. It's a short week, man. We're trying to get 8 pounds in a 5-pound bag. Those that learn quickly will have a place in terms of the divisional labor. Those that don't, those that need physical reps, will be minimized. And I don't know that them talking about it is going to aid that.
Anyone else?
Mike Minka hasn't had the turnovers this year, but is he doing things maybe to help set up other people for what they're doing?
Man, he's doing a great job, to be quite honest with you. But again, I think the turnovers will come. I think oftentimes when you play on the back end, you're defined by takeaways, just like when you play up front, you're defined by sacks, but it's not always the storyteller. But those of us that are in this business, we realize to a degree that you're measured by it. And so, you know, he'll keep working, but I'm not displeased by anything that he's doing, certainly. And we're asking him to do a lot of things, but we always ask him to do a lot of things. I'm really excited about Cam Sutton being back because Cam's presence is really helpful in terms of being able to move him around even more because Cam is so versatile.
Joey didn't give up a catch yesterday, and he obviously had the big play on the 2-point conversion to get Lamar down. How did you see him respond in practice last week after he kind of a rough outing in Washington?
You know, I don't even necessarily describe Washington as a rough outing, to be quite honest with you. He's aggressive and aggressive in play, and always has been. You know, his confidence is unshakable. He's a good player, and it showed yesterday.
Mike, you're getting Darnell Washington more involved in the middle of the field with some of those routes. How significant is that for what you guys want to do?
You know, it's big when you get a guy like that running down the middle of the field. We're really just trying to spread the ball around and take what the defense gives us and to have enough depth and talent in all positions where we're comfortable doing that. And I think Darnell's, you know, play in the open middle of the field is a reflection of that. We got guys on the perimeter that people are concerned about from a one-on-one matchup standpoint. Guys like GP and Mike Williams have reputations and resumes that merit you better be careful about one-on-one matchups. And so that pushes people to shells and 2 high safeties, and then the middle of the field is open. And so it's going to be opportunities for guys like Darnell. It all kind of works hand in hand. You asked me about the lack of opportunity for Mike. It might just mean what, you know, Baltimore was doing in terms of the 2 high shell, which opened up an opportunity for 2 explosion plays for Darnell Washington. That's just the nature of what it is that we do. We know and understand that. Oftentimes I don't take enough time or care enough to explain it to you guys, and I probably should do it more.
Mike, what did you see from him on the interception relative to what you wanted to see?
I'm sorry?
Washington, how did he play the ball that ultimately got intercepted?
I just wish Rush hadn't have thrown it.
I think it was Queen that said that Joey, first he said Joey's the quietest guy on the defense, and he said Joey said something before the two-point conversion. A, is Joey really that quiet in team settings? B, it's a second-year player for him to speak in that huddle.
The quietest guy in that group doesn't necessarily mean quiet. Joey couldn't get a word in if he was trying sometimes because of the nature of that group. But that group respects him, even though he's a young guy. His talents, his work, his approach, all of that merits attention in terms of when he speaks, people listen, and I'd imagine that'll happen more the longer he's here and the more plays he makes.
You talk about familiarity. Dan Moore's seen a lot of Myles Garrett. That's the same both ways. What do you need to do as a player to turn that familiarity into an advantage?
You know, I don't know that we view that as a one-on-one matchup, to be quite honest with you. And it's no slight against Dan Moore. It's just the talent level of Myles Garrett. I think you identify any tackle and match him up with Myles Garrett, it's not possible that he's going to get home. It's probable, particularly if it's in a one-dimensional circumstances. So certainly Dan is going to have his opportunities to be matched up against Myles, but I doubt that it's going to be in one-on-one circumstances, particularly in one-dimensional passing moments.
Coach, when Ravens week ends and ends with a victory, do you feel more sense of relief or more sense of elation?
Really, I'm just on to Cleveland. Maybe it's just the nature that this is a Thursday night, but by the time my car leaves that parking lot, I'm on the move. I've been in it too long to bathe in it, to be quite honest with you.
Anyone else? All right.